How are you all? I'm hoping great. Okay. I'm going to put this up for all of you as we come into, as we come on in today. I am going to go use the restroom really quickly from my last class and then take some time, look over this information. And if any of you have a main point one that you want to go over, or you wouldn't mind if you've already turned one in, I see that we have some students over here who have already turned one in. And if you've already turned one in and you wanted to review it, that would be super awesome, just so that we could go over a couple things for our students. Let me just also, so I'm enabling all of you to share as well, if that's something that you wanted to pull up as we start today. So go ahead and take a look at this real quick, and then I'm going to use the restroom, and then I'll be back in like 3 minutes, hopefully. Oh, and grab the water. Maybe banana. Sure. Okay, everybody. So, anybody have that rough main point that they would like to look at, or want me to look at, or anything? Can you all hear me? Oh, yay. Okay, great. Thanks, Anna. Yes, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I had a question. I emailed you my rough main point because I couldn't find a place to upload it.
Oh.
Like when I clicked on the assignment, it wasn't like able to be uploaded. It was kind of just directions, I think.
Thank you.
So I was wondering, because you said other people uploaded it, so I could not figure out how.
All right, let's look at this. Hold on.
Thank you.
Let me go to new share. Let's go to this. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Here, main point one rough draft. Did it not have for you an area?
It did not.
Huh.
It had that, but I wasn't able to submit anything.
Okay. I wonder if. Huh. There we go. Okay. Will you maybe, just if you have like a second, and I know that like internet is always an issue while you're on with something else. So let me know if that for some reason didn't or works again. If you can. Let me know that one.
It's all good now. It works.
Yay! Okay, good.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for reminding me of that or letting me know that. So let us look then at, as I was saying, there's just like a couple little things. Let me share this again, and then I'll come back and we'll look at the chat. This week, we're going to be diving into the second part of our proposition of policy, which is the counter arguments. That's going to be your main point two. Just as a note that the due date for main point two isn't until next Tuesday at midnight. So you have the week to work on it. Next week, we'll go over a little bit about your solutions, and we'll go over just kind of like some final last minute things. And then you'll go forward and work on your speech. So if you come on back to our class this week, and that's something that I want to make clear to you, if we're looking here at what to do May 24th through 30th, I've written out some information for you in details, and hopefully you're all aware that the only thing that you are responsible to do and work on this week is, and for the rest of the time in class, is going to be your persuasive speech. So as you continue to work forward and go on with new parts of this speech, continue to edit and continue to put them in like the evaluation or editing places, and just continue to work forward. There isn't anything else that you're going to be needing to turn in. So your job is simply to edit, to rewrite, to go back in, to just continue to work on it as the course progresses. Please make note that when you turn in your rough drafts, those are the only rough drafts that I will be looking at. So if with main point number two, for example, if you turn in 1 and 2 with it, I will only look at 2. But if you want to go over a multitude of the main points, or you want to go over your speech in total, I am so happy to do that, but do it in a conference time rather than having to reproduce and talk about it each time. So I have set up conferences for the next 2 weeks. Those will be during our class times, and it will be on Thursdays. And so May 28th and May 4th from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. There'll be 20-minute conferences that you are more than welcome to sign up for and to get in on if you would like to discuss and go over anything. The other thing that I wanted to make you aware of is I have set some spaces in the sign-up schedule for the live speeches if you would like to do your speeches live. Again, I think it's a great way to do it. For those of you who did it live last time, you can always attest to it, or for those of you who watched along, it was fun to do so as well. But this is an opportunity for you to at least get your speech done in front of a class. Also, it sets your time, and like you're done from there, and you can evaluate your fellow students at the same time. So I feel like it's just even more time manageable and an opportunity for you to push yourself and have some fun with all of us. You can sign up for all 4 of those meetings here under my event sign up link, and I'll cruise on that real quick. But this week, the most important thing for you to do is to read inside of Canvas the counter argument handout. Also read or review writing the introduction and conclusion for persuasion if you want to. Those will be up there, and those will be continuously reviewed. And we'll do that again next week as well. And you can also read about the call to action in this week's module as well. The other thing, I will hopefully be getting you back that main point 1. Now I know why there's not so many up there. And then make sure that you're putting up your, that doesn't make any sense. Next Tuesday is not the 1st. What is next Tuesday? The 2nd? The 3rd? Let's see, if the 4th is Thursday, then it must be the 2nd, right?
Sure is the 2nd.
Sure is, huh? Sure is the 2nd. And then what did I say over here? Oh, I said the 30th. Huh. Is it easier for you all to have the extra time over the week, or you want me to do it over the weekend? I don't know, whatever is easiest for you. I just figured making it maybe the Tuesdays would be easier.
I like the Tuesday.
Me too. All right, team. Don't worry. We'll just make that all there. And so I'll go in and I'll redo that. And I'll make a little note. For myself, put this under note for myself. All right. So main point 2, and I thought I really did that, next Tuesday, and that's 6/2. Cool. All right, last thing, and I'm going to call Santa Monica today, or Canvas, and try to figure out a little bit about this. I put a sign up schedule for all the events as well here, so you're more than welcome to cruise on it. If you click into the sign up meeting, you'll see that these are the office hours, and then the 8 o'clock class, and then the 9:30 class. Keep in mind that remember your class live speeches will be on the 11th, and they will be done at the 8 o'clock hour. So that's why I have the times that start at 8, because the final time runs from 8 to 11. So even when you're in here and you're signing up, just remember that if you can. And, oh, no, I wasn't done yet. Hold on. Almost there, everybody. The last thing is me calling over to Canvas. I wanted to put up here, at least for these last 3 weeks, for each of you to start to look at like what the grading looks like in this class. These are the grades here and the totals that you have. The only thing outstanding is the persuasive speech and the peer evaluations. So those are left over. Otherwise, the information or these assignments should be in your grade book. These 2 will not be in the grade book because they're not graded. The other thing that I don't think I have done is your thesis approval. And then a couple of you, I have yet to do your informative speech and outline, but I've emailed you about that. There's 3 of you in this class who have yet to get yours back who will do so today. If there is anybody who doesn't have these grades entered or you're missing something, let me know after today, because I'd much rather have us get these grades settled and squared away before, the last week. Again, I will look at it so that hopefully it will reflect the same number of points and percentages that I'm hoping it will. And after I figure that out with, no, after, no. Okay, I can't click on the grade button. That's my grade button. All right, team. That being said, let us, any administrative questions that you still have going on or anything, anybody administratively?
So you said that you did grade the informative speeches, but if you didn't, you sent us an email. Is that what you said?
Yes, except for Layla, yours. You're one of those 3.
Okay.
You and there's 2 others who are also in that 3. And then there were some students, but nobody, Victor, I think you, individuals who gave theirs in class, and I have those papers at home in my office, but I wasn't able to, I didn't bring them. So but the Chad went home. I'll have him do that today. Okay, good. Hopefully we'll get all of those up and going by today, as well as the issue with Canvas, just so that you can know where you're at. But believe me. I can say we're all looking good. Okay. Anybody have any administrative questions? Are we good there? Other than that grading? Okay. Now, any questions outstanding for the main point one? Anybody have any questions or want to look at it, or do you want me to look at yours if you've turned it in? So,
I actually did
Mhm.
send you an email. I don't know if you got my email, but I did have questions yesterday. I sent it to you yesterday. It was mainly about like specifically my first point.
Okay. Do you want to do it as an, like, you want me to go, you want to pull it up real quick and we can look at a couple things?
Sure.
Or wait, I mean, I'm also more than happy, hon, if you want to stick around after class for like 5 minutes and we
Yeah.
can look about
You could do that.
Okay. You can
Yeah,
totally.
we could.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Layla, did you? Or sorry, not Layla. Taylor, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think it could probably wait, but I was just wondering about like just specifically kind of like the format like within each of the paragraphs. Like I just wanted to make sure I was setting up my point correctly, but like that can be done.
Your problem one?
Yeah, just because like I just did the whole rough main point, so I just wanted to make sure that each of like the parts kind of like because you kind of did like a little bit of a map about kind of like maybe what kind of the direction I should go in, like this is why this is a problem, and like look at what happens when we actually do this, and then here's the evidence to prove that. So I was kind of just trying to use that as like
That's exact. I mean, that's right. You are absolutely right on the track. And like I said, I wish there was something like this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah.
When you read it, we'll start to think, okay, well, logically, does that make sense? Does that flow? Would somebody who's listening to me need something else? And that's really it. We think about like the mind of our audience. And that's why like, okay, well, let me define it and establish that it is an issue.
Mhm.
And then, okay, people are like, all right, well, what, like, why is that a problem? Right. And you're like, well, here it comes. Here it is. And then they're like, ooh, that's interesting evidence, but why does that mean that your policy works? Give it a warrant. And then you say, okay, so that's why you should do it. So it's just kind of that continuing process of, yes, lay out the problem. And I just had a student that we worked on this in my last class. Hold on one second. Because he had a question about his, and let me pull it. Where is it? Can I save it to the desktop? Really? I thought I had. Recent. There it is.
It seems like it's going to be so hard to fit all this information in 5 to 7 minutes.
Yes, and that's why you keep 2 main points or 2 subpoints. And where we start to, so Mateen, are you there?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to, is it okay if I show yours?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Because yours is up there already. And I feel like it has a good example. Hold on one second. I'm going to pull these. Why? Give me a second. Oh my gosh, this is so annoying. So sorry, y'all. Okay. All right, everyone. Hold on, your horses. Here we go. If I can find my toolbar, there we go. There are all of you. There's the okay, and sharing here. Okay. Are all of you able to see Mateen's speech now, this example? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's look at here, and even if we read through the main point, let's see. Let's look at okay, so the problems that have arisen, right? So let's see here. The first problem with factory farming are the conditions in which the animals are housed. Okay, so let's go ahead, and what I'm going to say is we're going to just take this and say that it's just the animals that are housed, right? That's all you have to do, because the part about humane conditions is what you're going to argue in the point. Let's go ahead and look at the first problem with factory farming are the conditions in which the animals are housed. Factory farming is the practice of breeding and raising a vast number of animals in cramped, unnatural conditions while subjecting them to objectionable conditions in order to harvest their meat, milk, and eggs, among other body parts. Okay, so we say something like these animals don't have a lot of room to move around, rather they are for the production of meat, eggs, and milk. According to author gives a speech, about factory farming and the harmful effect, which indicates that the industry of factory farming became popular in the 1960s and 70s when agricultural production could not keep up with the population growth. Okay, so with this, wait, is this the same one, Mateen, or did you turn in a different one too? Or is this the same one?
It's the same one. I just like changed like a few things in it on my
Okay.
one right now.
Okay, great. So let's talk about this. If we're talking about where they are housed, the information, oh my goodness, stop doing that. Why won't that? That's so funny, right? The information here about this factory farming and here is fine. Like your number 1 and your 2, as well as number 3, remember when I said what factory farming is? I believe that 1, 2, and 3 can all be put in your introduction so that we establish that. And in turn, when we talk about where the animals are housed, you're going to want to do something like, and let me go ahead and share this. The first, and can you see this Word document? Did it share that?
Yeah, I see it.
This one here, yeah. So we say the first problem with factory farming is how animals are housed, right? And then what you want to say is something about, maybe you could say from somewhere else about the cramped and crowded conditions. And then you will let us know that, cramped and crowded conditions are a problem because it can create I'm going to guess blank problems for the animals and the humans. Because what you need to do, instead of just telling me that factory farms exist, or that they've been going on since the 1970s, or that they're crammed, is to describe that. What are these, in fact, conditions? Like, can you tell us about those cramped conditions? Like, what is the legality of those conditions? And so then you say it becomes a problem, like for the, and then you could go in and describe, if you wanted to, animal effects, and, and then tell us give us some evidence about the animal effects. And then B, we know that when it's crowded, if those animals have that trauma, right, then what kind of impact does that have on humans when we eat it or consume it? And then you say, when animals are in their habitat naturally, they are not confined, and in turn reduce the impacts of harm to them and us, right? And then you'll provide us with evidence of and it's not factory farming, it's natural farming, right? Then you go on to the next one. Does that make sense, Matu?
Yeah, I think I understand it.
Okay, so don't put all that information up front about what's going on, and then about what it is, because we need to know that already before we get into the end. We'll talk a little bit about that, is that your introduction, by the time you come to the problems, we should already know what the grand overall issue is here in general, and that your policy is the thing that's going to be saving it. So that when we get into problems, I don't need to know what factory farming is, because I can already just go into the crampedness, that the ways that they're housed, the ways that they're slaughtered, like that those are the things that are problems. And again, you don't have to give humans and animals each time. Like I told you, if you want to stick to just animals for this speech, then do that. Or if you want to just talk about just humans, or both, you can do. But remember that if you have effects or those issues, you'll more than likely want to break them down. Like if you wanted to talk about the animal effects for how they're housed, and then if you want to talk about how they are slaughtered or something like that for the how they're slaughtered, and then the impacts could be to people and them again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine. Right now I have as my B, the second problem with factory farms are the way that animals are being treated. And I think you told me to put that one. Is that correct? That B?
It's up to you. So yeah, so the housing and the treatment, it's up to you if you want to talk about treatment. I don't know if you have something there. And let me say that, okay, yeah, because you were talking about the treatment of them while they're there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, if we're talking about kept in small cages and stuff, again, that's the housing. But if you're talking about when they misbehave, how they're treated or in that way, I guess my question, and again, these are things that we can talk about, is also changing, or with the meat farming factory, did you want to make it whereby it was that they should, instead of us just banning it, that it should be with open air? Like in their natural habitat? Was that your policy or no?
Yeah, to remove the factory farming and
Okay, so just removing the factory farming, and that's fine. If we don't want it to just ban, that the government should ban factory farming, fantastic. Do you have another place where they have banned factory farming in the world?
No.
Okay, look for that, because you're going to want to find evidence that factory farming is that if we take away factory farming, these issues will go away. Obviously they will. You're just going to want to find experts. You're going to want to find places or analogies whereby you can make that comparison, that this in fact is going to help, that it's going to be better by simply banning them and taking them away.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. With that said, for each of you, if we're back here, are you all seeing the, let's go back over here. We'll put this up here and we'll come on down. So I am more than happy, again, if any of you wanted to go ahead and go over, of course, the structure with you, and I'm more than happy to like take those times if you wanted to set up a meeting. I am going to, though, for right now and in the interest of time, pull up your second main point and start to look at some of those guidelines and how we want to structure this part of our argument. Does that sound like something you're ready to go forward with? Okie dokie pokies. Let's check it out then. What I'm going to pull up, and what I would encourage each of you to also do is in your, and you can do this again at a later time, but in your class homepage, you will see under this week, there's a handout about developing your concession and your rebuttal paragraph. I think that what may be best first is for me to show you the 4 to 5 parts of the counter argument. So let me come back. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. If you're seeing here under this week's, here's writing the counter argument, the concession, and the rebuttal. That page looks like so. So we're going to be looking at that one today. And then we're also going to be looking at the 4 to 5 parts to writing the counter argument. I want you to really take note that, so Taylor, when you were saying, I think these are the things that I need to do or need to hit, these would be the things that you need to address in a counter argument. These 4 to 5 parts of writing the counter argument are laid out within the other document, the one that I just showed you with, sorry, I need to figure out how I just do all my pages at once. I think I just show you the desktop and then you just enjoy all these things together. This is the developing your concession, and then the 4 to 5 parts. The 4 to 5 parts in the handout that I've given you for the week is all laid out in here. In first, the general purpose proposition and thesis. I have then walked you through the steps and told you what to do, and then giving you the example of each one. And then I wrote it in full for you just so that you could see how it would look if it was written. Mind you, this is an APA format, so don't mind here this citation for the APA. But then I repeated it as above. So I did like an A and a B for each of you to see how this would be argued. The argument here was to persuade my audience that Shawn High School should have an open campus policy for those maintaining a 3.2 GPA and above. So that you know what an open campus policy is. It's one of those ones where it lets you go on campus and off campus when like you don't have a period or for lunch or something like that. So it's just that freedom to leave or to stay. Some campuses have it, some campuses don't. And so with this concession, that's what they're going to be addressing, are those individuals of whom would not want for an open campus policy, who would not want for students to go off campus during that time. What I want each of you to keep in mind, and is if you can keep in mind these steps as you're going through it, don't worry so much about hitting each of them, about them each being like an A and a B and a 1 and a 2. Remember, give yourself and your internal voice some credit and remind yourself that you know what these steps mean and how it logically goes. simply make sure that you are addressing, that you're presenting with evidence, that you're conceding, and we'll talk about each of these steps as we go forward. So sorry. So the first thing that we are going to do is each of you are going to want, and let me go ahead and pull this out here. Is that one? Mhm. All right. If we wanted to, y'all, I think that we can take a look, see, we did this in my last class, at looking at the example even from last week's class, when we were looking at the drinking and driving example. More than happy to look at a different example as well. But if we look at this one, let's take a gander. I want each of us to note that, of course, before we go into our second main point, we are going to need some kind of transition statement. Now that we've looked at the problems that can come from drinking and driving, let's go ahead and look at why people are still drinking and driving. The second part of the proposition of policy addresses the opposition. It is important to address the opposition for a couple different reasons. The first reason is that obviously, we aren't always going to be speaking to a group of everybody who is on board with what we're talking about. That would be awesome. But if we are trying to work to persuade people to take action, we don't necessarily need to persuade those people. Those people are already on board to take action. It's the people who are on the fence and the people who are not on board with your action that we are really giving this speech for. And through the process of addressing those, of course, people who are on the fence and that opposition, we are reinforcing to the individuals who are in agreement with us why they are. The thing that we want to make sure we do in our counter argument, it allows us an opportunity to do a couple things. One, it allows us to, in fact, go into the minds of the audience. Because we talked that persuasion is this mental give and take that you're doing with your audience, that when we do that mental give and take, our audience is constantly engaged in some kind of debate or argument back with us. And therefore, to bring up their outstanding concerns or reasons why they wouldn't agree with us is what they're going to be doing in their own head and waiting for you to do as well. They're waiting to poke holes in these arguments that you may be presenting. And they're waiting for those arguments that they're super informed about, that they're ready to like argue back at you with. So it's important to make sure that they know why they may not be correct. And so that's another part of this, is that, first of all, it addresses the opposition. But the second thing is that we need to actually illuminate them as to either why, one, that way of thought is incorrect, or that our policy is going to be better than, more helpful than, or will assist. So you're going to either prove them wrong or you're going to prove yourself correct. That is the way that the proposition of policies opposition will work for you. The so we want to prove that that isn't correct. Otherwise, it's just a game of you're not right, I'm right, you're not right, I'm right. What is the reason that you believe they are not right? What is the logic in that, and how can we explain it? The last thing, and a very fun like discussion to oftentimes have, is to think about like when you've been in an argument, when do you become most frustrated with somebody else? What are the arguments that oftentimes will make you the most frustrated, or at what point during that argument do you become like frustrated oftentimes? Does anybody have like an idea? Or, and again, there's no necessarily right or wrong.
When it's not, there's no real evidence. It's just
Okay.
opinion.
Yeah, so right. So when somebody is just doing a because I said so, that's flustering. You're like, that's not an argument, please make this worth my while, right? Like there,
Or when they take it personal and they start like putting their own like feelings on yours. Like that's my personal frustration
okay.
when it comes to certain things like that.
Right. So when it's personal. So we talking about, so when they take the argument and instead turn it on you
Yes.
for believing in that?
Yes.
Good news. Here's how you can argue that. That's an ad hominem. It's an illogical fallacy. Everything else is not valid from here on out. So why don't you go ahead and give me some evidence? I'm kidding. But that's kind of like that's an illogical fallacy already. But I'm hearing you. And that's what we oftentimes don't get, is that individuals will be oftentimes get very flustered in an argument because their side is not being heard. And in the United States, because we are an individualistic culture that values speaking much more than listening in Western society, whereby we are more interested in talking, that when we're listening to an argument, we're more so waiting for the person to finish so that we can start talking rather than listening to what they're saying. So individuals oftentimes will not even address what is being argued because they're not listening to what's being said. Or secret option 2, you are not being heard. And so that becomes incredibly frustrating. People, and the way that we can maintain our ethical responsibility is by not only providing, yes, evidence and factual evidence to show how either they are wrong, how their idea is outdated, how it no longer exists, how it's not going to work, but also that we can provide them with some kind of concession or at least acknowledgement of their own values, of their own feelings, of their own belief, of their own ideology. And that's the important part, is simply acknowledging what they are feeling, but showing, demonstrating, exemplifying, putting it on a platter as to how that isn't correct or how your idea is different. And it's simply walking them through how you came to that idea. That's the idea of the warrant, right? Like all of us think that everybody knows what what's going on inside of our heads, but we don't know what's happening inside of other people's heads. And so in turn, we think about, we want to acknowledge the other side. We want to be able to provide evidence to be an ethical speaker, but also our ethical maintenance is through this process of acknowledging the other person's perspective. And so what we want to do first when going into these ideas is, if we were looking at last week's example, there are 2 common reasons given for drinking and driving. So we're going to address the opposition, and I'm throwing out the main point. But then we're going to go into the first step, and that's solidifying our A's and B's and C's. Hopefully each of you till now has been able to do that, because that's what you did in your skeleton, right? You found these different steps. So the first thing that you want to do is find a reason given that opposes like your opinion or your policy. Sorry, there we go, policy. And state it as an opposing reason. Those are your A's and your B's and your C's. So something like, all right. My question is, now we have laid out a reason that opposes our policy, and we're going to go ahead and state that as the opposing reason. So the first reason that people drink and drive is because they don't want to pay for a car ride when they may have one for free at their drinking location. So then I say, for example, Victor, are you there?
Yeah.
Would you ever, so if I had made that statement, well, one of the reasons that people don't want to pay for a car ride is because they, you know, they just don't want, or sorry, the first reason that people are drinking and driving is because they don't want to pay for like an Uber or a taxi or something.
Yeah.
Is that an illogical statement?
No.
Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that probably all of us would raise our hands and say, yeah, we've heard that logical idea before. The important thing here, Victor, is that your A's, B's, and C's, if they are common knowledge, there is no reason to give evidence to them. We don't need to continue to build upon why people disagree with us or why their opinions are there. We don't want to build out reasons for them. We simply want to state their claim, right?
Yeah.
They already have their reason. It's because they already have this for free. So the only reason at all that we would need to potentially provide evidence for our opposition is if they made a claim that we couldn't believe in. And I gave this example last week for then any of you who were there. I'll cut this here really quick. And we'll say something like, for example, if I put up this point, so if I put up this point, for example, Victor, is that something that you've heard before?
No.
Okay. I mean, I can jump to, you know, the idea of it all. I have not heard it before either. For me, that claim seemed invalid. It seemed like something that they wanted to argue just because they didn't have anything else, if you will. And so the only reason that you would need to support this claim and like prove it to be true or prove that it is happening or feel like people like are in fact actually doing it, that it's a reason that I need to bring up this opposition is if your audience isn't going to buy into it and believe it. But most of our speeches, because they've been existent within the realm of debate for so long, we know what these oppositions are, that we can logically, just as our own individuals, understand that. However, if not, then you're going to want to put something. So somebody in my class actually did this, and I was like, no, there is no way. But then they followed up with a piece of evidence that assisted for us to understand, again, a bit more about what that was talking about. And so, hold on, everybody. You just go ahead and and so what I've done here, and by the way, this statistic is something I completely make up, but like according to a study done with 500 college students in 2016, when asked about drinking and driving, 420 said in a response to why they still drank and drove that, quote, drinking and driving is fun. It's almost like a video game. It's the only reason that we would in fact need something there. Otherwise, if you have established your claim as the opposition and they understand, if you will, and we don't need to go on and expand, then there is no reason for that next step. So does that make sense to everybody? Okay, cool. So step one, find the reason, and then you give some evidence if you need to. Otherwise, we can go into a next part of our idea. And let's look at what that is, everybody. Oops, sorry. That was number 2 question. If you see it here, does the claim need to be explained? Is it common knowledge? Provide if so, or go on to the next step. Now what we need to do is we need to concede and refute. And this is the fun part, y'all. So what does it mean, in fact, to concede? Do any of you know what a concession is?
To like give in? Or...
Okay, I kind of like to give in, sure, but it's not more so like giving in per se. Want to go find Grandma? I know, I need to finish my class. Okay, you just lay there. She just woke up. Sorry, everybody.
Concession, like I just think it sounds like confession. So, well, I looked it up actually.
Oh, good. Yeah,
It
just give us
says-
that.
It says admit that something is true or valid after first denying or resisting it.
Oh, wow.
Surrender or
Absolutely. It doesn't mean you have to say that they're right. It's like, because you don't want to pay for it. You're like, you're right. Or like, because it's fun. You're like, you're right. That is fun. Like, we don't want to simply like concede. We're not, no. Thank you. Can you close that? My love? Well, I need, honey, I am so sorry. Let me go ahead and I'm going to grab, hold on, everybody, real quick. I need to, I have to finish this. So I'm almost done. I have only a half an hour more. Okay, but why don't you go ahead and come out here because Grandma will get you a blankie, okay? Hey, Mom. Yeah, I think they're out back. Hey, can you go outside with them? All right, if you lay right there, then just lay there, okay? There, you can use that. All right. So glad I came to my parents for help. Okay. Concede. We don't want to say we were wrong and they were right, but we can concede to something. And that is simply we concede to acknowledging their feelings, acknowledging their opinion, acknowledging their idea. So what is it that we could concede to? Each of you, this is going to be your own idea. What can you concede to safely without giving into your argument? And two, start to think about what you can in fact argue back. So if we were going to concede, is there, for example, let's see, who else do we have here? So Corey, are you around?
Yes, I'm here.
Is there anything that you could say that you agree or that you understand their opinion or you understand their feeling in this A that you could get on board with without fully negating your side of the speech?
No.
Okay. And that's good because you already know the problems. You're like, because for you, what doesn't work?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you saying that, like, no, this doesn't work for me?
So like, okay, so you see, I said the first reason that people drink and drive is because they don't want to pay for a car ride when they may have one for free at their drinking location.
Right. I should
I've
say
never
when they
heard-
may have their own.
A car ride when they may have their own for free at their drinking location. First, people don't want to drink and drive because they don't want to pay for a car ride when they may
Here's the
have.
big deal right here.
Yeah, because like the last part of because it's like I for one have never heard that, so it wouldn't change my opinion. And then I'm almost lost because I'm like, well, what drinking location and who? Well, like just for me, the whole second part after because it wouldn't make me change my decision because if anything, it makes you sound even more irresponsible. So I wouldn't want to take your opinion, you know what I mean, or I wouldn't want to take your reasoning.
Sure. What's one thing that sucks for everyone? Take drinking and driving out of it. And what's one thing that we can agree on?
Money.
There you go.
Money.
Money. Right. Like, I don't want to pay. Like, that would suck. You have your own car here and you have to pay for it. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
right. I was going to say that maybe an Uber ride might be too expensive to where they're going.
Great. Okay, so good. And those are some of the reasons that we, start to look at that. Like that may be a reason. What we want to do for each of you is you want to underline or highlight what you're arguing against, because you're not arguing to not drink and drive right now. Your first thing is to tell them is to argue against this claim. So we want to concede to a part of the argument that we can agree with. So in the concession, the idea that I was thinking of is that sure, you don't want to pay for a car, right? And so what we do, or at least what I'm going to encourage you to do, is cruise back over to the concession rebuttal. And what you're going to do here is you will see on number 2, it says argue back. State your logical argument and conceding or refuting that reason. So begin with the transition words. Your transitional phrases here on the left-hand column are all the ones that are concession statements. However, we do not want to simply concede. We need to concede, but then we need to argue back and either prove them not true or prove us true. So in my opinion, I'm going to agree with something about that. And I'm going to say, of course. So let's just say something like, I'm going to pick of course. I would say something like, of course, it is going to be more cost efficient to drive your own car. And annoying. More cost efficient to drive your own car. So we can concede there. But then we need a refutation so now let's come back to it. Is there something now that we are, okay, well, let me actually tell you this. If we are arguing for free, then we need to make an argument against the claim for free. So what is it that we want to suggest is either not true for them or true for our policy? So if I said something like, of course, it's going to be more cost efficient to drive your own car. And then if we look back, I look right across and I say, okay, what's the opposite of course? I can say, nevertheless. That's a good one. All right, I can do that. And then I would say something like, nevertheless. So now, y'all, we need to argue against this. What could you argue is not as efficient cost-wise?
A DUI.
Ah, so great. So Layla, if you wanted to, so what would you say? Nevertheless, could you finish out that statement?
Nevertheless, there are more costly consequences to drinking and driving.
Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, there right. Or now, perfect. So now we understand that what is she arguing? She's arguing that, sure, it's going to be nice to save some money, but the fact of the matter is that if you drink and drive, the money that you, what? What kind of evidence, for example, would you might want to bring in here? What would you be looking at if you were listening to this speech? So, I mean,
I would put up the cost of a DUI. I heard it was like $10,000.
okay.
I took a tip certification because I'm a bartender, so that's what they told me.
Yeah, it is. Okay, good. So it's upward from 10 grand. And so what could you do?
You could buy 500 car rides with that money.
Absolutely. Okay, good. Absolutely, you could. So the consequences, right? So you could say something like, you know, drinking and driving as mentioned. And even if it was in your problems, you know, mentioned before, can come with many consequences. One specifically a DUI. You know, a DUI costs upward of something like criminal record and reputation, you know, along with the cost of your criminal record and reputation. And Uber or a taxi, even from a I don't know. So what I've done here is I have argued what? Because here we are talking about arguing about money, right? So if it's going to be about money, we're going to concede to the bummer about money, but I'm going to argue that money is not the thing. And then I'm going to only provide you evidence about that. What? Oh, here it is again, money. And then I will say, although it, you know, although saving a couple of bucks to, although one thinks, and again, now we just need to, I realize I didn't tell you this next step before I went on to write it. So let me go ahead and just grab this back real quick, y'all. Oops.
You, by the way, your estimation of like an Uber ride, I had to look it up because I was curious. It's about $122.
Look at me.
The closest city that's $100, or the closest city that's 100 miles away from here is like Bakersfield. So yeah, you were close. The most is 135.
I know, because my friends who live in like Westlake Village and will come down to the South Bay will Uber and they'll share like $100 Uber. I'm like, very smart, thank you. But when you put 4 people in there and then you're like, okay, that was fine. Again, oh my gosh, $100, but out of 10,000 and a ruined reputation. And that's how you like represent it back, you know? And that's, so we want to provide our audience with evidence of the policy, either our policy superiority or perchance their status quo inferiority, that thought process is an inferior one, that it's a cost benefit issue. You can literally argue with just the money doesn't make any sense and the odds of that, and then how that makes you right. And then all you're going to do after that is you will do your returned call to action, which means then, I'm so sorry, everybody, I just don't know where anything is on this computer. What is that Word document? Aha. So then you can make sense of it. You can give that warrant if you want to, but then otherwise you can go back and simply say, although saving a couple of bucks, and you could even make your warrant and your call to action in the same idea, which you'll notice, although saving a couple of bucks may seem worth it in the moment, the long-term financial harms from drinking and driving don't make the action worth the investment. I don't know, something to that extent.
So I have a question. Professor Whitten, is this the part where you're providing the information that's going to warrant, like, because you put warrants, I'm just playing off your name, that's going to warrant everything that you said, like pretty much your evidence of what I'm saying is true? Is this that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is like a warrant and a call to action in one. The reason as to why this warrant may not be so necessary and why it can be combined is because this evidence, in fact, speaks for itself. Evidence very rarely speaks for itself, but when you do something like this is 10 grand and this is $122, I don't need to explain that to you what the differentiation is, right? So if we did something with the fun per se, that may not be, that may need like perchance a warrant, if you will. Also, remember that in our second main point, oftentimes we will think, oh my gosh, I need to provide like evidence, or I need to find a reason against this. For example, if we, Corey, are remembering what we're arguing, if I look at the second main point, the only thing I'm arguing here, I'm going to argue is that drinking and driving is fun, right? The only thing I have to argue against, that it's not fun. Do you think I'm going to find evidence or an expert or a scientist to say it's not fun?
I hope so.
I'd hope so, but I don't think anybody necessarily needs to, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes it's going to be your own logic and just your own explanation of it. Don't worry about finding outside words. It's like, let me just explain this to you.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking when you said warranted, that I also need to come in with like my supporting evidence, like drinking and driving isn't fun, and Professor such and such from Michigan State said that, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought
Totally.
we wanted.
Totally. Without him, Professor so-and-so from Michigan State saying it, and by the way, did I just give it props to being a man?
Yes,
with
you
funny
did.
talent? So let's say that strong woman professor from Michigan State, just kidding. So let's just say that professor from Michigan State, what's it called?
That the drinking and driving is fun.
It said that
I mean,
drinking
it's
and
not
driving is
fun.
not
Mm-hmm.
fun. What would that professor say? Let's make you that professor.
So the risk that the risk that comes with drinking and driving is actually detrimental rather than fun.
Yeah, you know what's not fun?
Is drinking and driving.
Yeah, well, drinking and driving, sure, but what are the effects, right? Like those are the effects that we're
Okay.
Sure,
Okay.
video games are great until you crash or you lose,
Yeah.
you start over. You don't get to do that in a real life, right? And so you
Yeah.
could say
So
like,
drinking and driving is fun until you get a DUI.
right, until you get a DUI. Or drinking and driving, yeah, it may seem fun, but you know what's not fun? Going to jail. And you know
Yeah.
what's not fun is having the weight of killing someone else on your shoulders. Let me
Okay.
read
You know
this.
what also isn't fun? Having to deal with consciousness as you're driving. That just no.
That's true.
Yes.
That's what one friend told me. She did that one time. She told me it was not fun.
Not fun. To panic.
She didn't want to do it, but she had to.
Oh, yeah. So, you know,
Happened.
there it is too. So we don't always need, it could be like, okay, well, you know what's not fun? Yeah, going to jail. Let me read you like a story about somebody who drank and drove and went to jail and sat there and thought about what they did forever. So the next time you think, oh, this could be fun like a video game, remember, you don't get to start over. You don't get another life. Or nobody else does either. This is a real game that is fun as long as we're doing so responsibly. Something like that.
That was good. That would have been like a mad commercial, like that little the little analogy you did with the video game. That was a really good one.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Okay, good. I'm excited. This is a speech sample that I'll put up for y'all. It is one that a student did at SMC, and it was very smart to persuade my audience to properly park their car on SMC campus. It has nothing to do with like adding more parking spots. It has nothing to do with anything. It's literally just park correctly. All right, y'all? Because it's true. Like, think about how much stuff. Anywho, if you see over here, after driving, very cute, by the consequences of parking incorrectly. Second thing I'm going to talk about are the reasons some people think parking this way is okay and prove how the reasoning is incorrect. So the first reason some people might park incorrectly is because they're pressured by time, for example. How many of you have ever been on campus and been like, crap, I just got to park this way, because, right? And so people, that doesn't necessarily need some kind of refutation or sorry, some kind of evidence to prove that that would in fact work. So the first reason, time. Someone might be in a rush and they hurriedly park their car, ignoring the parking lines, and take up 2 spaces instead of 1. It was good for them to qualify that, only because you're like, sure, what do you mean in time? Like, do I park in like a handicap spot? No, it's just that people park like when they're like waiting for the time. So what he's saying, or this individual is saying, is that we would say that parking in between the lines inevitably leads to a chain reaction of people parking incorrectly, or it may even force someone to ignore your bad parking and park an inch away from you. Although this might seem unnecessary at the time, should someone be forcing someone to park extremely close, it will make it difficult for you to pull out the space you're in. This cancels out any seconds that human maids save parking by incorrectly doing in the first place and costing you minutes trying to safely pull out. So what did this individual have to argue against? Time. And so how do you start to argue against time? Like, okay, well, they're doing it because it saves time. That's the reason why they do it. Like, I didn't do it, I have to save time. But if they're worried about time, then think about arguing that time on the back end. If we're arguing money, can we argue money, or can we argue something more important than money, i.e. lives or livelihood? Lots of you may have to think that, especially if your claims are going to ask for like investments or putting in money. It's like, well, what's going to be more beneficial than money? Probably like the health, or like how are we going to see the benefit on the back end if we spend a bunch now? So these ideas, or I showed this one, Corey, and building upon what we just did there, there's no evidence here. If you see, it is simply our own logic on some of these. And although we more than likely will need to provide evidence to our audience to show how they are either incorrect, or how our policy is in fact true, or how that's no longer going to work after a certain amount of time, or how that's an outdated law, whatever. Just think about how it's going to be on the opposite. What can, like, that you're arguing that, and then what can go up against it? Do you have the evidence to go up against it, or do we need to think about a value or a belief of our audience that we can probably use up against it? So think about those. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this back down. And I'm going to pull up here on our home page again. So then we will have that call to action, like I was saying. So if we'll have evidence, do you need a warrant to explain that, to show that differentiation, to explain it? What does that evidence mean that's going to in fact make my policy true? Or what does that evidence mean that demonstrates you are incorrect and not correct in the way that you are thinking? And then call to action, because we can no longer hold this idea true. Because the policy after 2 years will create more damage than it would, I encourage you, each of you, to support the claim that I'm making or support the policy that I'm going with instead. So calling that back into play. These steps, if that is what you can make your actions through, is going to be a great just checkpoint for each of you. Did I lay the claim? Does it need evidence? Yes. Does it need evidence? No. Then go on. Let us concede. So think about what you want to concede to. What can you agree with? And then what are you going to argue against? So find your concession and your refutation, what's it called? Words in your language through that handout if you can. And then, well, let us even, concede, refute with your claim, then provide us with evidence that's going to prove them wrong or it's going to prove your policy correct. And then we'll go back to that call to action. Let me go through the example really quickly and we can look at it together. So let's examine some of the reasons as to why the opposition exists toward high school open campus policy. And so here it is. The first reason opposition exists is that many school administrators think an open campus would be a temptation for students to cut classes and act irresponsibly. Now we have our concession. Although this may be true for some, because it's true, consider the reality that if a student wants to find a way to cut class or act irresponsibly, they'll do so regardless if a policy in fact exists. An open policy is not going to change this type of student's behavior. In a high school with similar demographics to Sean called Scotch Plains, Principal Ryan Adams reported that, quote, 97% of students maintained their honor roll status after 3 years of open campus, and only 2% of students overall received disciplinary action for breaking the open campus rules. Now, did the evidence prove them wrong or me right? And I know that's an interesting one. We are making the claim.
You proved them wrong.
Okay. Because?
Because regardless, if a kid really wanted to cut class, they'll find a way regardless of what policy is already there. They're just going to cut class.
Right. So the good news is that what we have done is we've provided you with that out of all of these honor roll kids who were given the option to go off campus, only 2 broke it. So even if these kids wanted to do so, I mean, they could have been doing it the whole time and maybe only 2% are going to do it, right? So here's really where that warrant comes in. Oh yeah, go ahead, Corey.
Oh, I'm sorry, Professor Whitty, but couldn't it also be where you're saying like that, that just because you have the opportunity to leave campus, it doesn't make you an irresponsible student because the honor roll students after 3 years, they're able to do it. And so it's like, how can you be irresponsible and on honor roll? So wouldn't it kind of like support what you're saying?
Yeah, good. Absolutely. So that's what, see, the small number of students breaking the open campus policy shows the open closed system had no bearing on behavior. And let's be logical, honor students would hardly run the risk of lowering their grade point average by cutting a class. So it's totally, I mean, I said it right there and you like said it without even thinking of it. It's just logical. These are honor students. They're not going to like harm themselves by doing that, like already. Students who have the privilege of open campus would be unlikely to jeopardize that privilege. The concerns by the administrators of holding on to these policies out of fear and responsibility is just invalid, no longer exists. Let's go forward, do it up, right? So good. The same idea happens with this one about, you know, that they're going to wreak havoc in their stores, right? And they said they did not do so or whatever, so. It's, however, you want to start to argue it. And again, it is so much of you putting trust in yourself that you've already walked through logical statements and you know these particular arguments that you need to give for the class. So you know your structure. making that claim, make sure that you're not giving credit to them, but instead refuting, but you are in fact acknowledging their opposition, and that you are providing us with some kind of evidence that shows them and demonstrates why they're wrong, or demonstrates why your policy is going to work instead. And simply do that call back to action. But beyond that, this main point is if you'll start to notice, the first main point is your largest with the most amount of evidence, hopefully those 3 pieces, right, of evidence. And then your second main point gets a little bit less, and it still is able to offer the opportunity to speak the benefits and the good of your policy and how it will help. And then the last main point is our smallest one, because we don't really provide any evidence going in. It's simply the steps to take. So from here, at least with this second main point, let me go back into our class. Do we feel at least good about starting to make a rough draft at it? Do you feel like, okay, I understand, like if I'm looking at these 2 handouts, I can come up with an idea? Here are the
Yes, that's for sure.
that this one, I want to make sure that you can turn in these ones too, right? I think it's because when I put it in extra credit.
And just because I saw again, Professor Whitten, while you were talking, our second rough point main draft isn't till June. Yeah, you're fixing it now.
Oh yes, I was. Oh wait, is that the 31st?
Yeah, it says the 30th.
You're on
but
July.
Oh, I'm on July. Hey. So it'll be here. What's today?
You said June 2nd, right?
There we go.
That's a Tuesday.
Thanks, everybody. There we go. Okay, cool.
And our first main point is due tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my next question. So great.
Loosely.
I got you.
Yes, June 2nd there, and then today. Did I put the rough main point? Oh, there. It's because it's in from last week. Would it be better if I put it up here for all of you to see?
Well, I had got the email, so that's how I knew. So I was just checking like how Magali was, but I had saw the email, but so it's up to you.
But we just argue against why people are against our policy, but not argue for why our policy is a solution to the problem that are addressing in the first main point. Like, that seems strange to me that we don't say how our policy is helpful to what the problem is.
In the problems, in that first main point, you do.
Oh, did we cover that? Oh, we're just gonna add it in there.
Yeah, so remember when we talked about this animal shenanigan up here? Are you on, oh wait, are you looking at, sorry, you're not looking at the same thing I am.
I must have just missed that somehow, I guess. That's what I was confused. So we're doing the same thing in main point A and main point B. We're giving the problem, we're gonna give an argument for our solution, and then we're giving the reasons why people are against, and then why they shouldn't be.
So
I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
why don't, so Layla, let me show.
We address the problem, and then we talk about, we argue it, and then we talk about moving forward and why that's a solution, right? That's what I got.
That's what I got from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Layla, are you talking about for the second main point or the first main point?
I did both of them. I'm saying for the first one, we present a problem, multiple problems, whatever it is. And in those problems, we respond with why our policy is going to help this problem.
Yeah.
And then main point B is these
Or
are
main
the
point
reasons,
2.
right, 2 is why people are against our policy, and then we explain why they shouldn't be.
Yes. And in that, you'll either get the opportunity to, again, tell how yours, Because I think for you, the reason that you're going to like the second main point, what I said is because that was really what your first initial idea about this whole speech was. That idea that people had misconceptions about this and what it could do. So by you addressing those misconceptions and saying, although some people believe it does A, in fact, it doesn't. And then you can say, in fact, it's going to do this instead, or it has never been proven that it's going to do that, or we don't have any evidence because nobody lets us talk about it because it's illegal, right? Like,
Okay.
yeah. So you'll go back and you'll have the opportunity, whatever you want to argue there, to clear up those misconceptions with evidence from, you know, scientists and therapists and other people, or from the logic of the rhetoric being like creating a negative ideal or something like that.
Okay.
And the idea, again, it's not like you're going to necessarily need to prove it, but like I do think that proving that people have a negative, well, I don't know if you're using like that one, but, and we can always talk about those as well. I simply want to make sure that if you have something about a benefit that you have yet to address in the problems, then potentially find a way to do it for your causes or those reasons that it could be used as an argument against.
Okay, great. That's what I was wondering.
So there's places you can use them, yeah. Any other thoughts there, y'all? And I know we're over time, so nobody feel like they need to, yeah, stick around and do all this. But note that I have those sign-up schedules for this Thursday as well as next. The dates for our sign-up for your persuasive speech are also there. Yeah, and I just want to encourage you to use those as much as possible. That those are there for you. I, of course, would like, you know, hold class every day if I could, but that's not really in the cards. So if you would like your own little personalized walkthrough, and we can do it, so easy. But does everybody know what their assignments are, at least for tonight, and then going forward into next week, working on that second main point, and just continuing to develop.
Yes, ma'am.
Yay! Okay, good. Can you believe we only have really like 3 weeks left?
Crazy.
I know. If I would have known we were going to be
Wow.
quarantined and I could be so studious, I would have took on more classes.
Right? It's like, oh my gosh, when have we all not picked?
It's June next week. Like, wait, it's June already?
Oh, how was it just March? I have no clue. It's crazy. Crazy. So weird. All right, Smart Cookies. Well, Dylan Rose is coming to get me because it's 11. And so I am going to sign off. Dylan Rose will say goodbye for the day too.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Dylan Rose.
Bye.
Bye.
You have a great day studying. I'm going to go study too.
Aw, happy birthday.
Oh, what did you?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Want to show them your pajamas you got?
She has a cat.
She has a cat. Yes, isn't that special? Do you see the cat? Ask Layla. Say, Layla, what is that cat's name? Can you ask her what the cat's name is? What's the cat's name, Layla?
Name's Cairo.
Tyrell?
Cairo, like the city.
Oh, Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
he's
my
so
gosh, look at that
cute.
cat. Look at how pretty that cat is, Dylan Rose. You are a show-off, adorable little Cairo. I love it. Look at those eyes. And now you're bummed. I get it. Oh, you all right? Okay. All right, everyone. If
Thank
you want
you.
to stick around, hon, I will go through your outline with you real quick.
All right.
Hang on, if you want.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're so welcome. You all have a great, wonderful rest of your day. Come on. Okay, Dylan, let's go with Papa real quick. I just am going to do this one, and then I'm going to be done, please.
Come on, Jill. Let's go. Let me show you the picture of my car. Come on.
Ooh,
Come on.
aren't you going to go help Papa do things today?
Come on. Oh, Grandma's got your fruit. Let's go.
And fruit. All right, I love you.
You want to see my car before?
Okay, let me pull up your
May I share my
oh
screen?
wait, was it is it like a Google Doc or anything, or is it just Word document?
No, it's a Pages document.
Will you want to upload it to the main point one?
Sure. I mean, to be honest with you,
Or do you want to just send it to my email real quick?
I just want to tell you that I copied and pasted my skeleton because I
Mhm.
wanted to know like where I could sort out specific things, because I know that I could talk about the psychology in my introduction, and yeah,
Okay.
that's all I have. Literally, I just copied and pasted it.
Oh, okay, that's not a problem. Okay, let me see. Oh, all right, you said.
May I share my screen with you so you could see it?
Yeah, I'm looking at self.
Okay.
Okay, good. There we go.
Okay, here you go. Hopefully you can see. Here it is. Full screen. Come on, full screen. Thank you. Okay. So here's my first part. I know we changed it to self-esteem, so I'm going to like write.
Yeah,
it
not a
here.
worry at all.
I also rewrote my thesis, if that helps.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we change, so the thing here first is that with your A, remember, we want to say the first problem from having a negative self-esteem is
Having low confidence.
to achieve goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in your introduction, you may, if you're going to talk about somebody who has low self-esteem,
Mhm.
you're more than likely
I also was going to talk about their unrealistic goals. So, like, for instance, they want to reach for something higher for themselves, but in reality, they don't know how to approach that, or they don't believe that they can.
Mm-hmm. And that's, yeah, I mean, that's really it. Like they just don't think they can. And I don't know if in the introduction you want to give the, because now that I'm looking at this, and you know me, I just need to, hold on one second. I'm gonna keep your screen here while I just pull up something and write something here. Let me say that. Will you scroll up on your document just a bit?
Sure.
Maybe to show me the whole second page. Perfect. That's perfect there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let him go.
Oh, sorry, that's my computer.
Oh, that is okay. And
I got a coupon for this ramen spot, and my friend's like, we should take advantage of this 20% off. I'm like, oh
that
my
sounds
god,
so,
I can't.
yes.
I can't. I'm like trying to get summer body ready right now.
Oh my God, it's like June 1 is like, yeah, that's like my fake date to start something.
Right.
Hold on one second.
Thank you.
All right, hold on.
Yeah, I wrote a lot for my skeleton. I really did. Okay. Sorry.
All right. In my head, now look at if I shared this with you.
I'll stop my screen.
Oh, you're open. All right. Now, let me just make this bigger for you here.
From an expert. Oh yeah, definitely.
Now, here's what I did. Did you see what I started out with instead?
Right. Problems with
Because
negative thinking. Ah, yeah.
if that's our, it's going to take out a couple steps, I think. If
Right.
you can establish because if our claim is that thinking positively is going to change our self-worth, thinking negatively is our status quo. So what are the problems with thinking negatively, if you will, is that it can influence what somebody sees themselves capable of doing, is what I was saying. So that's really, I mean, it is in essence, oh, you have there, the same thing. It's just saying it a little bit differently.
Just worded it differently, right?
I
That
think
makes sense.
then it lets you just define, this can come from like a psychologist.
Right.
Like, what do we start to see ourselves capable of doing? And then, you know, you can give that evidence if you need to. Says
Probably will.
I just made, a distorted view of what one is capable of. So then, like, we've established it. Now we're going to talk about the effects can lead to, and I'm just saying, like, these are two of my thoughts. When you're saying like arrested performance, in my head, that's like when people just like close up and they freeze. Like you're saying, they think too much on, they don't get tasks accomplished, etc. Because they're always just sitting there in self-doubt. That was like, could be the arrested performance. And then the other one is like participation in life. That idea that they don't see themselves, like, so they don't take risks, they don't go out and try new things, they don't know what they're capable of. Then you say, however, positive thinking can change that. And then you'll say, like, when individuals put into practice blank, they noticed a difference in their ability to get up and do something. Or like, let's say like in school, they put in like blank with these kids who had never thought that they had an opportunity to do something in their life. And like each of them ended up going on feeling like they were capable of doing something and increase their worth. You could give those examples and then say, so this, you know, it's not like anybody out there is sitting going, oh my gosh, I can't wait to think negatively. But you can instead say something like, to benefit from these, you know, to free yourself from, if you have any of these effects, or perchance benefit yourself going forward, you know, try to put into practice these ideas of positive thinking. And then the same thing I think can happen for your second one, if you wanted to do capable of thinking, and then if you wanted to say influence.
So that bottom part where you wrote positive thinking can in fact increase one's worth and capability, that's the transition for my, like, why someone wouldn't think that.
This in fact is still this is all part of your A.
Oh, okay, got you.
So this is all your A, and then so up here,
Got you.
this part is like step, I'll just highlight them here. This is your first step. Here are the the effects and impacts. Here is your policy working.
Yep, right.
Well, that didn't look any different now, did it? Gotta come up with a good color, like this pea green one. And then this is where you draw back to your policy. So these are those 4 different parts, essentially defining what the problem is and why it's a problem.
All right.
This, when you have that, when that is your status quo, here are the effects and the impacts. I start to have that, right? Like performance impact, participation in life effects. And I say warrant that impact, because you'll be like, if I'm not doing work, I'm not advancing. Or if I'm a student, I'm not getting anything done. Or participation in life, when people don't try, they don't challenge, they don't get new things. It's like, what don't they do that's impacting them? So you can explain it just a bit, and then you go into talking about how your policy is going to help. Here you go.
And that'll be my last point.
Or this will be your part. Yeah, like this, if you had to say it, like this could be your 1. This could be your 2. This could be your 3. This could be your 4. And then you go on to B.
Damn.
If we looked at it like that, right? And then 2, this would be like your small a, this would be your small b.
Okay, right. And then, what else did I talk about? I said,
Oh, yeah, the next one, no,
get out of the screen.
Um,
I also want to talk about the extreme cases as well. Like why that's a problem. I think that's it. Negative thinking. Okay.
I was saying interpersonal relationship because you were saying
Yeah.
a bit about that. I think I was reading when you were talking about like the depression
Right. Yes.
and
Mhm.
anxiety. I feel like that may also come from your A or your B.
Mhm.
The anxiety, at least, of not being able to, do things. You get anxious because it's like that panic, and then you don't do anything, and then you become depressed over it. The other
Yeah.
thing you wanted to talk about, that influence on interpersonal relationships, like I think that could encompass those other areas you were talking about like not joining in, not.
Yeah. Isolation, self-harm.
So that
Okay,
may
yeah, that
be
makes
the
sense.
easiest way to just do an A and a B.
Okay, yeah, that I want to cut it down too because I don't want to be talking about just one thing.
Yeah. So
Okay.
let's make that the B, and then you'll say, so that will be there, and then you could say something again. You'll do the same thing here. It's kind of 1.
Right.
And then you'll go into the effects, right? And then you'll say something like 2, when one has a, it can influence, let's say, how they interact. I don't know.
I think, yeah, the interpersonal relationships, I think that just counts with like family, friends, relationships, romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You could do another blank and blank, and then you can do an A. Right? So like give the effects here, closeness, something like that. And then you can go into another one if you want to. But I'm thinking of like, what we lose closest. Or like when you don't, people need belonging. It's like a basic need. So it's true. You can talk about closeness and connection, like losing that sense, but also like the depression, the sadness to come out of it. Also, if it like spurs on other like not doing it, that leads to more not doing, I don't know. You know the best.
I do.
But does
that help?
Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it.
I'm going to definitely rewrite this after class.
I'll put it here as this like new skeleton, but alas, we'll take that one out. I'm going to reply to this email of yours. And then
Right.
I'll send it back to you. Allegedly.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so
Okay, I
much.
guess I'm gonna just stop my share there because I don't know what's happening. All right, hon. I'm going to send it back to you via email. You let me know if you need any more help or sign up for an email or something, but you know, even if you got through the A
Mhm.
today, if you want to get through the A, that'll show me that you get, or if you like the B better, who knows? But again, if you don't get it in tonight, you get it in tomorrow. It's not late, just however it feels best for your
Okay.
schedule.
That's what I was worried about. Okay, cool.
Nothing's late anymore. And these two actually aren't even like, you know, they're not graded. So whenever they come around, I'll get to them.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much, hon. I will email this back to you as soon as I end this. And then you have a good rest of your day. And I will see you soon.
You too. Thank
All right,
you.
hon. Take care. Bye.